"Oh, that was a delicious meal. Thank you for the treat." At that moment, something inside me shifted dramatically. I've heard enough of this phony phrase. I stood there frozen in the kitchen, my eyes fixed on the empty pot before me, not a single piece of food left. Every time I see this sight, my heart sinks deeper. For 7 years, I've been delivering dinner to my mother-in-law Alice every day. Today, I made a hearty stew, carefully selecting fresh ingredients from the supermarket after work. I simmered the potatoes until they were tender and gently cooked the meatballs so they wouldn't fall apart. Each ingredient was infused with my love and care. But what is this emptiness? What is this hollow feeling? I noticed Alice rummaging through the kitchen drawers. "Oh, maybe you can make a casserole next time." My heart tightened. Here we go again, this cruel charade. Just 10 minutes ago, she was complimenting my cooking, and now this sudden change in Alice's attitude filled me with sorrow. I used to believe that dedicating oneself to others was never wrong. Now, that belief was sinking deep within me. I'm so tired, but I can't share these feelings with anyone. The setting sun streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the empty pot. My heart, too, felt as empty as this pot. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll make tomorrow. I expect great things, Alice said with a smile, her eyes gleaming with a hint of challenge. In that instant, 7 years' worth of emotions surged through me. I had reached my limit. I stared out the kitchen window, a firm resolve forming within me. My name is Emily. For the past 7 years since I married, I've been delivering handmade dinners to my mother-in-law Alice every day. It's not an obligation, but rather a form of atonement for me. When my own parents fell ill, I couldn't care for them as much as I wanted, and that regret still lingers. Perhaps I'm trying to fill that void by dedicating myself to Alice. Alice is a former elementary school teacher and is strict about everything. She rarely expresses gratitude for my cooking, often complaining that fish is too much trouble because of the bones, or the stew's seasoning is too bland. Initially, her comments used to upset me, but now I've grown accustomed to them. Still, it's not like I don't want to be appreciated. I hate to admit it, but deep down, I long for some acknowledgement. Emily, I think this casserole from yesterday is a little bland. Oh, I made it from yesterday's leftovers. I hope you like it. It's not bad, but it could be a bit richer. My husband John is always busy with work and rarely gets involved in family matters. He casually says things like, taking care of your mother is a wife's duty. He grew up in a single-parent household and was the sole recipient of Alice's devoted love. So I understand why he prioritizes Alice. But when he uses that as an excuse to take my efforts for granted, it still makes my chest tighten. I'll be late again tonight, so just eat whatever for dinner. Okay, don't push yourself too hard. These brief changes continued, and I felt a growing distance between us. Yet I couldn't voice my dissatisfaction. A few years ago, I started noticing subtle changes in Alice. She would repeat the same stories multiple times or wear clothes that were out of season. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but these incidents became increasingly frequent. The possibility of dementia crossed my mind, but I didn't have the courage to bring it up to John. He would probably dismiss it, saying, "There's no way, Mom's fine." One evening, I received a call from Alice. "That stew you made today was delicious." I was so surprised by her unusual praise that I almost doubted my ears. In 7 years, she had never complimented my cooking. Once. "Really? Thank you so much. I'm so glad you liked it." Alice's voice sounded unusually cheerful on the phone. It was different from her usual stern tone, almost as if she was giddy. "Yes, it was delicious. By the way, what's the special occasion today?" "Today? There's nothing special about today." "Oh, that's strange. Well, anyway, thank you." Despite the strange call, a small joy sprouted in my heart. Maybe my efforts were finally being recognized. That hope swelled within me. But there is some strange tone in her voice. It's almost like she's giddy. Or maybe she is restless and her speech is rambling. That night, even after hanging up, I couldn't stop thinking about Alice's behavior. Was that call just a sign of fatigue, or was there something else going on? If Alice really did have dementia, how would our lives change? And just imagining it made it hard to breathe. The next day I resolved to talk to John about it. But when I saw him coming home looking exhausted, the words caught in my throat. Did something happen? No, it's nothing. I didn't want to burden him by sharing my concerns. Sleepless nights followed as I questioned myself. Would I spend my life silently enduring, or should I find the courage to change something? I didn't have an answer yet, but I felt something was beginning to change. Whether that change was for better or worse, I couldn't tell. One thing was certain, my everyday life was starting to shift. Tomorrow I will go to Alice's house to collect the pot. I will talk to her then. As I stepped into Alice's house, a stillness akin to suspended time enveloped the space. The outside clamor seemed to vanish, leaving only the faint scent of incense in the air. The living room was arranged with antiquated furniture, each piece meticulously placed, creating an atmosphere of formality. Yet, amidst this, the kitchen alone pulsed with a semblance of life. Removing my shoes, I headed towards the kitchen to retrieve the pot from yesterday's stew. Upon opening it, I found it empty, devoid of any remnants of food. The sight warmed my heart. She ate it all. A smile tugged at my lips. It felt as though, after 7 years, my culinary efforts were finally acknowledged. Inwardly, I celebrated this small victory, a silent fist pump of triumph. "Oh, Emily, thank you again for today." Her voice was cheerful, but there was a certain coolness to it. Startled, I turned to see Alice peering at me from the living room, her eyes devoid of any warmth. "I will take out the garbage for you while I am here." As I approached the trash can, intending to remove the bag, something caught my eye and I froze. There, in the trash bag, was the stew I had delivered the previous evening, discarded along with the broth. The potatoes, the meatballs, all untouched. What? The word escaped my lips, a gasp of disbelief as my mind turned blank and my hands began to tremble. Why? I had poured my heart into making that stew last night. How could this have happened? Understanding seemed to elude me. A dreadful premonition gripped me. I gently placed the trash bag back and reached for the refrigerator door. The moment I opened it, a pungent, nauseating odor assaulted my senses. Inside, I saw past dishes I had delivered, left untouched and decaying. The casserole had turned a grotesque shade of brown, and the salad was covered in white mold. Each dish was a testament to my painstaking efforts, now rotting away. I felt a wave of nausea and quickly shut the refrigerator, struggling to breathe. Cold sweat trickled down my back, and my chest tightened. I glanced back at the trash can and noticed something else. Discarded containers from takeout sushi and pizza, empty beer cans, and a pile of receipts from upscale sushi joints and well-known chain restaurants. What's with this extravagant food? In that instant, something within me shattered. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and my knees trembled. What had I been doing for the past 7 years? I believed that by dedicating myself to my mother-in-law, I had become a part of the family, but perhaps it was all a delusion. That night, I took photos of the refrigerator's contents and, upon returning home, showed them to my husband, John. What's going on? All the food I delivered to Mom was thrown away. I don't want to deliver meals anymore. As I showed him the photos and voiced my concerns, John furrowed his brow and sighed. "You must be mistaken. Mom wouldn't do such a thing." "I'm not mistaken. The spoiled food was left in the fridge and in the trash." I tried to explain, but John cut me off. "You're just being paranoid. Stop speaking ill of Mom." "Paranoid? I have proof. Why won't you believe me? Have you tried talking to Mom directly?" But as I stumbled over my words, John raised his voice. "You're just making things up. It's probably because your cooking isn't good in the first place." His words pierced my heart, leaving me breathless and rigid. It felt as though all my efforts were being utterly denied and my heart was breaking. The next morning, as I walked towards Alice's house, I grappled with the turmoil of emotions within me. My mind raced, stimulating conversations with her, each scenario ending in disappointment. "Alice, why did you do that?" The question echoed in my thoughts, mingling with the remnants of the stew in the trash bag and the image of the spoiled food in the refrigerator. If only it were just a bad dream. But it was reality, a reality that tightened its grip around my heart with each acknowledgement. Standing before her front door, I inhaled deeply, my breath trembling. There was no turning back. I pressed the doorbell, my resolve hardening with each passing second. After a while, the door opened, revealing Alice. As always, her posture was erect, her neatly arranged white hair beautiful, but her expression was stern, with deep furrows etched between her brows. "Good morning, Alice." I tried to keep my voice gentle, but Alice's gaze remained cold, as if I were an unwelcome intruder. "What do you want?" Her words were curt, sharp. The tone of her voice made my heart shrink, but I steeled myself not to back down. I wanted to talk about the stew I delivered the other day. I mustered the courage to speak, but the moment I uttered those words, Alice's expression changed. Her eyes widened slightly, and the corners of her mouth tightened, as if I had stepped on a forbidden landmine. "What are you talking about? I would never eat stew." "But where did the stew I brought you go?" She suddenly raised her voice, her anger directed at me. When her words reached my ears, I gasped, feeling a tightness in my throat that prevented any words from escaping. Her unexpected reaction squeezed my heart. I tried to maintain a calm facade, but I could feel my voice trembling. I made it and brought it over, but it seems like it was thrown away. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Thrown away? Who would do such a thing? You probably hid it somewhere. Alice's voice grew louder as she cornered me. Overwhelmed by her aggression, I instinctively took a step back, my back hitting the wall, the cold sensation making my body tense up. Alice, I didn't. Shut up! Alice's roar was piercing. Her face was flushed, her breath heavy as she glared at me. Her eyes were filled with anger and animosity as if she was denying my very existence. You're trying to make a fool out of me, aren't you? Making food to try and control me? That's not true. I don't believe you. Her words struck me one after another, and I felt something within me crumble. The Alice in front of me was nothing like the Alice I knew. Her transformation was terrifying. I didn't do anything of the sort, Alice. My voice quivered as I tried to deny it. My words seemed to bounce off and vanish into thin air. Liar! You always try to make things difficult for me. Alice's voice shook the air violently. The sound felt like a sharp blade grazing my ear, making my entire body freeze in an instant. The Alice standing before me had gone beyond her usual dignified demeanor, now a tempest of fury and hatred. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face crimson, and her tightly clenched fists trembled slightly. It was as though the familiar Alice had vanished. Alice, please calm down. I really didn't do anything. But my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. You're lying. You always do this, making a fool of me, interfering with my life. Her accusations were relentless, and I felt helpless, trapped in her storm of rage. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized how terrified I was. My heart pounded, and I couldn't help but take a step back, feeling as though Alice might strike me at any moment. The contact with a cold wall brought me back to reality. I tried to maintain a calm tone, hiding my trembling hands behind my back. All right, Alice, I'll make sure not to upset you further. If there's anything you need, please let me know. I carefully crafted a gentle expression and bowed respectfully. However, Alice's eyes remained fixed on me with a sharp glare. Her gaze was filled with suspicion and anger, as if my very existence was an unbearable nuisance to her. As I left her house, I felt her piercing gaze on my back. Even as I closed the door and hurried away from the entrance, the intensity of her stare didn't fade. On my way home, Alice's transformation kept replaying in my mind. Was her bizarre anger a symptom of early dementia? Tears welled up. But then another thought crossed my mind, or was it simply an explosion of her long-held animosity towards me? The unease churning within me changed shape with every word. If her anger was just a reaction to me, what had triggered it? The scenery on the way home seemed blurred as my eyes wandered, unfocused. The sounds of passing people, the engines of cars, all seemed distant and unreal. Either way, I couldn't just leave things as they were. I paused, staring up at the sky for a while. Beneath the overcast sky, unanswered conflicts weighed heavily on my heart. I knew I had to do something for Alice's sake and for my own. I knew that much. But what should I do? The answer remained elusive. Eventually, I started walking again, my steps heavy, my heart burdened with unresolved emotions. The next day, I contacted a home renovation company. The man on the other end of the phone had a calm voice, but there was a slight pause when he heard my request. My mother-in-law seems to be showing symptoms of dementia, and I'd like to secure the kitchen window for her safety. I want to prevent anyone from entering or taking things out. My voice naturally lost its intonation, becoming flat to mask my emotions. If that's the case, we can handle it. However, once the work is completed, the window will be completely sealed, which might cause ventilation issues. Is that acceptable? Reducing the risk is more important. The contractor seemed convinced by my words, and we quickly scheduled the work for the weekend. I gave detailed instructions to carry out the work when Alice was out, and the man confirmed with an understood. On Saturday afternoon, the contractors arrived as promised. They worked efficiently and silently. The sounds of bricks and cement being delivered and the metallic window frame being removed echoed in the kitchen. I watched from a slight distance in the living room, my gaze drifting to the cup in my hand. Will this make things a bit safer? I murmured in a small voice. The sight of the bricks being stacked, their dull reddish-brown hue, seemed to mirror the complex emotions swirling within me. By the time the work was finished, the kitchen window was completely sealed off. The distinct smell of drying cement lingered in the air as the newly built brick wall stood imposingly. In the evening, Alice returned. The sound of the front door opening echoed, followed by her footsteps. I was waiting in the living room, my ears picking up the approaching steps. And then, the next moment, what is this? What have you done without my permission? Alice's voice, filled with anger, reverberated through the house. It even sounded shaky as if anger and confusion were mixed together. I stood up and went to the kitchen. There stood Alice, her face flushed, her hands trembling. She was staring at the completed brick wall. As soon as she noticed me, her anger turned towards me. "What do you think you're doing? Explain yourself." Her voice was nearly a scream, her glare piercing at me. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress my emotions, and opened my mouth. "Alice, I'm sorry to have surprised you. You mentioned you didn't know where the stew went, right? I took safety measures to prevent anyone from taking things without permission." I tried to sound calm, a slight hint of irony in my smile as I spoke. Alice's face momentarily froze, a mixture of surprise and confusion. But then her expression twisted as if the flames of anger were reignited. "I didn't ask for this. You're doing unnecessary things." "No, Alice, you were upset about not knowing where the stew went. This solves the problem. Now, no one can touch it. Plus, you won't have to rely on takeout so much anymore. It will save on electricity and grocery bills." As I spoke in a cool tone, Alice's face turned even redder, her fists clenched and trembling. "I won't allow this. You're trying to trap me, aren't you? You're making a fool of me." Alice advanced towards me, her voice carrying the weight of her former authority as a teacher. "Trap you? Isn't that a bit of an overreaction? I did this because I'm worried about you, that's all." I took a step back, meeting Alice's gaze. Alice stood still, her mouth opening and closing but unable to form any words. Seeing her like this, I felt a pang of pain in my chest, but I couldn't back down now. "This should make your life more secure. Please let me know if there's anything else you need." Leaving those words behind, I left the kitchen. Alice's screams from behind felt like they were piercing my back, but I didn't turn around. Witnessing Alice's unusual behavior that night, I decided to stop deceiving myself. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Her strange actions, bizarre words, and unreasonable anger weighed heavily on my chest, making sleep impossible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. In the darkness, only the turmoil in my mind echoed clearly. I tried to close my eyes, but all I could see was Alice's face from earlier that day. Her furious eyes, trembling fists, and that voice that accused me of being a liar all seemed etched into my mind. That voice replayed in my head over and over, carving itself deeper into my heart. I tried to steady my breathing with my eyes closed, but the unease clinging to my chest only grew larger. Every attempt to fall asleep brought back her voice and expression, making it impossible to even shut my eyes. I remembered the other strange moments I had witnessed before. For instance, last week, she suddenly stopped in the kitchen and asked, "Why is it so dirty here?" Even though the room was perfectly tidy. I had just smiled and said, "It's the same as always, Alice," but I noticed the unease in her eyes and the way her expression tightened. At the time, I dismissed it as me overthinking, but now that unease was swelling within me. I started to doubt my own perceptions. I realized I had been rationalizing her odd moments, telling myself it was just fatigue, stress, or a minor misunderstanding. I recalled a recent incident. Last Friday, I entered the living room to find her sitting on the sofa, talking vaguely towards the wall. She was speaking as if to someone, saying, "That person is ignoring me again," as if she didn't think I could hear her. I didn't call out to her then because I had no idea who she was talking to. I pretended not to see anything at that moment, trying to convince myself. But her face at that time, her quietly trembling hands, and her words vividly resurfaced now. I was suddenly overcome with a tightening sensation in my chest. The unease I had felt then now enveloped me coldly. Why didn't I realize it sooner? My muttered words were swallowed by the darkness. A period of silence followed, but the question repeated in my mind over and over. No answer came, but I knew I couldn't keep deceiving myself. That much was certain, a strong feeling in my heart. What should I do? I muttered to myself again. I wanted some kind of answer, but all words seemed to float in the air, none of them offering solace. Just then, a small sound came from the corner of the room, the sound of something falling. My body tensed, and I instinctively widened my eyes. But even when I strained my eyes, the room remained silent. Only the sound of the wind could be heard faintly. That sound made my heart even more anxious. Finally, I gave up and got out of bed. The clock showed 2 a.m. I went to the living room and picked up the notebook I had left on the table. It was filled with my records of Alice's behavior. It started with minor things like her repeatedly buying the same items at the store or forgetting what she had just said. Gradually, it escalated, and recently she seemed to avoid people and appeared frightened of something. I opened the notebook on my lap, gripping the pen tightly. As I traced back through my memories, flipping through the pages, my heart grew heavy. This record seemed like proof of Alice's gradual decline. "Still up?" The sudden voice made my heart jump. I turned to see John standing at the entrance of the living room, his hair disheveled, still in his pajamas. He was clearly half asleep, but there was a hint of annoyance in his expression. "What's wrong? It's so late." John stepped into the living room and noticed the notebook in my hands. Before I could answer, he frowned. That notebook again? You're really overthinking things, aren't you? I hesitated for a moment, but decided to speak my mind. John, we need to talk. I need you to listen. In the middle of the night? John sighed, running a hand through his hair as he sat down on a chair. When you say you have something important to discuss, it's never good news. It's about Alice. Do you really think this is okay? I tried to keep my voice calm, but my words felt chaotic, unable to settle comfortably. Here we go again. What is it this time? I think she might have dementia. She was acting strange again today. Her anger wasn't normal. She seems scared of something, and she seems to be mixing up things from the past. I desperately tried to convey my thoughts, pointing at the notebook with my hand. I've written everything down. We should really get her checked by a doctor. John glanced at the notebook but quickly looked away. Mom's fine, you're overthinking it like I said. She's as sharp as ever. She doesn't need a doctor. His words triggered something within me to quietly snap. Sharp as ever? Do you really believe that? Are you going to blame everything I see right in front of me on me too? Hey, what's with that tone? John's face turned stern as he retorted. Don't make Mom sound like a villain. I'm not making her out to be a villain, but do you think it's right to ignore reality? I could feel my voice trembling, but I couldn't stop. I don't want to see Alice hurt anymore. If you're going to pretend not to notice, I can't do that. John remained silent for a while. Silence enveloped the living room. In that silence, I could see his expression gradually changing. It became wary, with a hint of something cold mixed in. You're just saying all this because you are tired of taking care of my mother, right? You're just using dementia as some kind of excuse, right? The moment those words were spoken, long pent-up emotions within me erupted. If you think that taking care of your mother is a burden for me, then fine. But from now on, you're doing everything. Wait a minute. What are you suddenly saying? His voice trembled, unable to hide his agitation. I silently stared at him and slowly closed the notebook. The sound echoed in the room. Without a word, keeping my gaze fixed on him, John shifted uncomfortably, tapping his foot, and continued. Hey, why so sudden? Think about all of this, you're by yourself, I said without a waver in my voice. Without looking away, I stared directly at him. If you need to take care of your mom or deal with things in this house, you can be responsible for it. After saying those words, John froze, not blinking. He stared back at me without a word. I couldn't tell what he saw in my eyes, but I think he must have understood the anger and disappointment I felt. What? Why are you suddenly like this? John finally spoke, but his words seemed to be in vain. His face showed confusion and bewilderment. Seeing his flustered face, my heart cooled slightly, but surely and steadily. I calmly exhaled and continued. I'm done sacrificing myself for others. I can't bear the thought of carrying this burden alone any longer. As I watched John's reaction to those words, I took another deep breath. No matter how scared I was, I knew I couldn't go back. A strong resolve, shaking my whole body, surged within me. You probably just don't want to take care of Mom anymore, right? Making up excuses about dementia. John's words stung, echoing in the room. So you are just going to put all the blame on me? As if my feelings don't matter at all. I responded, my voice low, tinged with a mix of helplessness and anger. You just need to do your job as a wife. John's voice seemed to negate me, making the room feel heavier. At that moment, I heard something inside me shatter. It felt as though everything I had endured until now was crumbling. For 7 years, I had strived to make things work with my mother-in-law, and now all of that felt meaningless. I remained silent for a while before slowly raising my head. Only determination shone in my eyes. I couldn't endure this situation any longer. So that's how you really feel. Understood. I stated coldly, meeting John's gaze. John's eyes widened in surprise, and he lost his words. He looked flustered and confused, but he couldn't avoid my steady gaze. What do you mean? His words made something else inside me crumble. My heart turned incredibly cold, and I felt numb. No matter how bewildered John was, I had already reached a point of no return. I'm done living a life where I have to sacrifice myself for someone else. Those words felt like they were opening a heavy door inside my heart. When he heard those words, his face transformed, a mix of shock and fear. I can't carry this burden alone anymore, I continued. If you won't stand by me and instead turn a blind eye to your mother's reality, pushing it all on me, then let's get a divorce. What? Divorce? Are you serious? I watched the color drain from John's face with a detached coolness. His reaction stirred a faint pain within me, similar to what I had been feeling, but I no longer had the capacity to feel that pain. I'm serious. If you're worried about your mother, you can take care of her. I've done my best for 7 years. If I'm expected to keep shouldering the same burden, there's no point in staying in this family. My voice was cold and trembling, but my words were filled with strong determination. John stared at me, wide-eyed, unable to process my words. He opened his mouth but eventually remained silent, unable to say anything. His face showed that he had underestimated me until now and was struggling to face the reality before him. He looked at me, but couldn't find an answer in my gaze, shifting his feet slightly as if uncomfortable. I don't care anymore, I stated coldly. If you won't agree to a divorce, let's separate. If your mother needs care, you two can start a new life together. I'll live my own life. The words felt like solidified ice in my heart, cold and brutal. John was at a loss for words, unable to retort. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Seeing him like that, I kept repeating to myself in my heart, this is my choice, my way of life. Tears silently streamed down my cheeks, but I desperately tried to hide them, feeling myself grow increasingly colder in my heart. My hands felt heavy, but I took one step at a time towards the entrance. John's face vaguely entered my field of vision, but I realized it no longer touched my heart. Without looking back, I opened the door and the cool night air brushed my face. The cold wind seemed to strengthen my resolve. I felt a powerful force in the air, as if pushing me forward, blowing away all unnecessary things. I closed the door, and from behind I could faintly hear John's voice. Hey, wait! But it no longer reached my ears. I didn't even try to listen. I simply closed the door, releasing myself into the outside world. I won't go back, I firmly vowed in my heart. And with that vow etched deeply in my heart, I walked out into the quiet night. Only my footsteps echoed. That night I felt like I could go anywhere, to the ends of the earth. After the separation, I completely distanced myself from John and Alice. When I first started living alone, I was surprised by the quiet. Looking back, the days in that house were like a constant storm, forcing smiles, always being on edge, and now, finally freed from all that, the time spent in my quiet room felt comfortable. John, now solely responsible for his mother's care, began to understand the hardships firsthand. For the first few weeks, there was no contact from him, but gradually things changed. When Alice's diagnosis was confirmed, John started to face the reality of caregiving. It was what I had been saying all along, and now he was feeling its weight. You were right. I'm sorry. John's voice trembled slightly as he apologized over the phone. I still remember that moment vividly. I thought no words would suffice, but I simply replied, I'm glad you understand. Maybe I should have just nodded silently, but at that time what I felt was that mere words of apology were no longer enough. A cold realization. On the other hand, I was reclaiming my own life. Since I started living on my own, I had more free time, which was the greatest gift. I released the feelings I had suppressed for 7 years and started walking a new path. At first, I didn't know what to do, but gradually that time became precious. I never imagined that spending time with friends and discovering new hobbies could be so enjoyable. One afternoon, on my way home from an outing with a friend, I suddenly noticed something. The smile on my face was natural, and the dark expression I used to have was gone. I was surprised by my own transformation, and at the same time a warmth spread through my heart. To be able to smile genuinely from the heart was such a wonderful thing. At home, I couldn't smile when I was with my friends. The food I used to eat with my friends was always delicious. Back then, no matter how tired I was always cooking for others. Now, I realized how delicious food tasted when made for myself. Food made for yourself, not for someone else, really is the tastiest. Those words held the strength of overcoming past suffering and the hope for a new life. As I savored the meal, I murmured in my heart. My friends must have sensed the significant meaning those words held for me. My life grew brighter day by day. The image of Alice standing alone in the dark, windowless kitchen and John waiting for the care service van faded into the distance. Their existence no longer had any influence on my life. As the dark, closed-off kitchen of Alice's house receded, my life became filled with light. With each new step I took, I felt their influence wane. Now, I'm savoring the happiness of living my own life from the bottom of my heart. Everything feels new. The future seems filled with endless possibilities. There were many times during those 7 years when I felt like giving up, but I finally got myself back. I'm now proud to be living for myself.